to lose that much weight in such a short period of time, your body must be shitting itself because your body is not happy with even a much smaller amount of weight loss in a short period of time. To lose that much is going to cause a great deal of stress and panic within your body. And it is going to respond to that. Like, your body does not take that. Like, your body does not understand, oh, I'm fat and I'm trying to lose weight. Your body thinks you're starving and you're dying. Your body thinks you're sick, and it's going to try and fix it as quickly as possible.
This is Eat the Rules, a podcast about body image, self-worth, anti-dieting, and intersectional feminism. I am your host, Summer Inanen, a professionally trained coach specializing in body image, self-worth, and confidence, and the best-selling author of Body Image Remix. If you're ready to break free of societal standards and stop living behind the number on your scale, then you have come to the right place. Welcome to the show. This episode of Eat the Rules is brought to you by You on Fire. You on Fire is the online group coaching program that I run that gives you a step-by-step way of building up your self-worth beyond your appearance. With personalized coaching from me, incredible community support, and lifetime access to the program so that you can get free from body shame and live life on your own terms. Get details on what's included and sign up for the next cycle at summerinanen.com/you on fire. I'd love to have you in that group. This is episode 297, and I'm with Dr. Asher Larmie, Transmasculine weight inclusive GP and leading expert in weight stigma. Asher is here to break down everything you need to know about weight loss medications like Ozempic and Wegovy. We talk about what the research says about the long-term effects of these medications, their side effects, how much weight you might lose and then gain back, and what the health benefits might be, and so much more. You can find the links mentioned at summerinanen.com/297. I want to give a shout out to Latin Can, who left this review. Great podcast. This has helped me in this journey of getting comfortable with my body so much. Keep it up. Thank you so much for leaving that review. It can be short and sweet, just like that. You can go to iTunes or Apple Podcasts, should I say, search for Eat the Rules, then click ratings and reviews and click to leave a review. You can also subscribe to the show. That helps other people to find the information that you're learning here. Don't forget to grab the free 10-day body confidence makeover at summerinanen.com/freebies with 10 steps to take right now to feel better in your body. If you're a professional who works with people who may also have body image struggles, like if you're a therapist or a dietitian or a doctor, get the free body image coaching roadmap at summerinanen.com/roadmap. If you can't spell my last name, you can always go to thebodyimagecoach.com to find everything mentioned here. We are going to get right into this episode because it is on the longer side, because there is just so much to talk about when it comes to weight loss medications like Ozempic and Wegovy. They're different medications, by the way. Same thing, but different dosages. And that's the good stuff that we're getting into today. We're getting into all the details about it. I have listened to so many different things on this topic, and having this conversation today, I learned even more than I thought I knew. So I think you're going to take away so much. I'm extraordinarily grateful for all of the time and energy that Asher has put into researching this topic and for taking the time to be here today. Dr. Asher Larmie, he/they, is a transmasculine weight inclusive GP and leading expert in weight stigma. He is a fat activist and the founder of the No Way campaign. With over 2 decades of medical experience and a lifelong journey as a fat person, Asher is combating weight stigma and promoting weight inclusive care as a self-styled fat doctor. Let's get started with the show. Hello, Asher. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited. As I said just now, I'm going to try and be sensible and not be a child and immature. Like, it's getting to that stage in the day where I am feeling a little bit reckless, but I'm going to try and rein that in.
Well, I will try not to stoke the fire there, but we'll see. We'll see. Maybe people want a reckless episode about weight loss medications.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe that's what we're going to give them. Who knows?
Yeah.
Let's
So
see.
I was saying to you before we hit record, I went to your weight loss medication masterclass back in the fall, and it was so good. You delivered the information in such a helpful and practical way. And ever since then, I was like, oh, we have to have you on the podcast. And I've been trying to, refer people to wherever you've been speaking about these types of things and just weight and health in general, because it's just, it's so great to have someone with your background and experience actually be able to look into, the medical side of things and be able to offer a perspective that is perhaps not being offered in the dominant mainstream. So I'm super happy to have you here today.
Thank you. Thanks for that. That made me feel
That's
really
what I
good.
try to do. So why don't we get started?
Yeah.
What are, first of all, for because I think most people will call it like Ozempic or Wegovy, but they really fall under the classification of GLP-1s. Is that right? So what are GLP-1 medications?
So actually, they are like mimicking a natural hormone that we make inside our gut, our intestine. And that we call these particular hormones incretins or incretin. I don't even know how you say it, to be honest. And GLP-1 is one of them. And so the manufacturers, which are not just Novo Nordisk, but Ozempic is created by Novo Nordisk. They just made kind of an analog. It's just like a mimic. It's just like, a similar compound. It's not quite the same, but it binds to the same receptors. And what it does is it basically increases the amount of insulin you produce. That's the role of the incretins, is to make you produce insulin. So it increases the amount of insulin that you produce. It reduces insulin resistance. Those are the two main things. But as a side effect, it just happens to reduce your appetite. So it acts on the brain to reduce your appetite. It also slows down the emptying of your stomach. And all of these things, or these two last things especially, leads to weight loss. It's an inevitable part of the process of giving people these supplementary incretins or the GLP-1 analogs. So the manufacturers, in particular Novo Nordisk, who are making these drugs, realized pretty quickly, wow, look, people are losing quite a bit of weight on this medication. Maybe we could do something about that and make some money. So they took the medication, which I should have said is used predominantly to treat diabetes. I think most people know it's used predominantly to treat type 2 diabetes. And the generic name is semaglutide. You go up to 1 milligram to treat diabetes, which you give 1 milligram as an injection once every week. What Novo Nordisk realized was if you almost triple the dose, or 2.5 times the dose, there's not a word for that, but at 2.4 milligrams rather than 1 milligram, it actually induces quite a bit of weight loss. So we could just rebrand this thing, give it a new name, Wegovy. The pen that you can get is 2.4 milligrams rather than 1 milligram. And we'll give that to people. Instead of for diabetes, we'll give it to people to lose weight, and it will work. And it does. It does make people lose weight to begin with. The problem is that there's a huge demand, as you can imagine, and they cannot meet that demand. There's an issue with the supply chain. And so nowadays, really, people are taking Ozempic, the 1 milligram injection, for the purpose of weight loss, whereas the 1 milligram injection is actually meant for diabetes. It's not that great at weight loss. If you look at the studies, they actually did a study where they compared Wegovy and Ozempic for weight loss and found that Ozempic's not that great. You really need to be on the high dose for it to be effective. So there's a whole bunch of people taking Ozempic for something it's not licensed for. It's licensed for diabetes, not for weight loss. Those who are taking Wegovy are at least taking the medication that is licensed for weight loss, but actually it's very difficult to come by because of supply issues. That was a very long answer. You said I'd be concise.
No, but that was super helpful because I don't think I realized that last point, and maybe I just missed it because when you did the masterclass, it was like so much information. That was great. I didn't realize that Ozempic is only 1 milligram and is really the diabetes medication. The one question I had just as a follow up from that is the diabetes medication has been around for a long time. Like, has that been around for a long time? Like, is that like an effective diabetes medication? Yeah.
Yes. In the history of diabetes medications, it's still the newcomer. there are drugs like metformin that have been around for decades. And there are drugs that are perhaps slightly less fashionable now because of these newcomers that came along. And there are two newcomers, the GLP-1 analogs on one of them. And I've been prescribing it for many years. I'm trying to think when we first started prescribing. It was probably about 6-7 years ago. I can't remember when it was released. It was later than 2010 and before 2020. So it was somewhere in that decade. And yeah, they've been around for a while. Most of my patients actually never go up to 1 milligram. A lot of them are just on the 0.5 because you don't really need to go that high. It does a really good job for some people. For some people, it's not very effective. For others, it's really effective. And I want to make it very clear, I've got no problem with people using Ozempic for diabetes. I don't think there's an issue there. It is, as far as I'm concerned, a relatively safe drug as far as drugs go for diabetes. But what we have to remember is that people who are diabetic are there is already lots of processes going on in their body that insulin resistance being one of the main ones. So taking this injection is going to reduce your insulin resistance, and that's got to be a good thing for diabetics. People who aren't diabetic don't necessarily have insulin resistance, and if they do, it's not become a kind of pathological problem yet. And so there are questions around how this is going to affect those people. And also, 1 milligram is very different to 2.4 milligrams. The more you take, the worse the side effects and the higher the risks of long-term complications. So the problem is we don't know what 2.4 milligrams does. It's literally been around since 2021. And as I said, there's such a supply issue that most people aren't taking it. So yes, fine for diabetes. Really, I don't have any concerns about it. Although I will say, it's got a lot of side effects and not everyone can tolerate those. So nowadays, endos are so obsessed with prescribing Ozempic because all diabetics need to lose weight, right? Because most diabetics are fat and they'd rather us thin and sick than they would fat and not having side effects. So they push Ozempic because they want you to lose weight. And for some people, it's just not possible. And Ozempic is not the only medication. I've just had a client telling me that they were told if they can't tolerate Ozempic, their next option was insulin. And I was like, no, there are 6.5 different groups of medications for diabetes. Ozempic is one of them. There are 5 others at least that we can try before we even consider insulin. So this idea that it's Ozempic or nothing for diabetics is also wrong. Wow,
that's super interesting. And so I had a follow-up from that, but I'm sort of blanking on it. So I'm going to go to a different one and then hopefully come back to that. Oh, I know what I was going to ask you. So I know a lot of people, and I don't know if this is necessarily in other countries because I'm in Canada, you're in the UK. You're in the UK, right? Did I get that right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I just want to make sure you hadn't moved somewhere else.
That's right.
But in the US, I know that there's places that are just kind of compounding it, right? Or you can even just kind of buy it online, through, I don't know where, but so it's off brand. Would those people be getting, would those people be getting the sort of Ozempic knockoff, or would they be getting the Wegovy knockoff?
So as far as I know, you can't get this drug without a prescription. I'm not aware that you can get it without a prescription. I am aware that people are getting it from pharmacists. I don't know how that works legally. I don't know how the FDA does things. Here in the UK, no way you can get it without a prescription. But here in the UK, we have pharmacists that can prescribe things. So, you also have telehealth doctors. I have concerns about taking Wegovy. I can't even begin to go into taking knockoff Wegovy, if that's such a thing. That's desperately worrying. I mean, drugs like this, it'll be very hard to copy them. It's not like fast fashion. You can't just copy a person's drug that's legal to do that. So I would be very interested to find out what's going on. But as I said, I know even Weight Watchers, WW Weight Watchers has now bought a telehealth company that prescribes predominantly Ozempic and Wegovy. So you can get this really easily now. But as I said, I think even in the States, Wegovy is hard to come by.
Yeah. So I was talking to one of my colleagues yesterday, and she works in the fitness industry, and she was saying that a lot of the gyms in the US are having an on-site, I guess it's a doctor, but somebody who is now situated inside the gym, it's part of the facility. And I can't remember, they named one particular chain that I don't think we have here in Canada. So it's not sticking to my brain, but where they've, that's just part of now, whenever you go in one of those particular facilities, that's going to be a part of it. So I think it's pretty prolific, especially in the US, is from what I'm hearing, like more so, I think, at least from what I've seen here in Canada. But yeah, sorry, go on.
I also think, and this is not meant to be a criticism of the US, but I think that their laws are a lot more lax than our laws. Like we in Canada, and I think in the UK as well, and most of Europe, we have very strict rules about things like that. And I think the FDA is slightly more relaxed about, what can I tell you? This is big business. And it's like we refuse to learn from history. How many weight loss drugs can you name that have existed in your lifetime that were taken off the market a few years later because people were dying from them? What you have to understand is drug companies put money aside to deal with the lawsuits from the people who are going to die from their drugs. Like they have put the money aside already. They have said, yeah, even if this costs us 50 million, 100 million, doesn't matter. We're making billions. And so they need to cash in quickly because it's only a matter of time before we realize that A, these drugs are dangerous, and B, they don't actually do what they said they were going to do. So then, they've got like a finite amount of time to make as much money as possible. So it doesn't surprise me that you can buy them in gyms now and you can get them over the telephone, and it's become so prolific because this is a money-making exercise, and they must make as much money as possible in the shortest amount of time as possible. It was 430 billion, 450 billion that it's been predicted, I think, something like that, from this one drug, Wegovy. I mean, that's too many zeros for me to get my head around, but that's only if it's successful. So they will do whatever it takes to be successful. And if people die along the way, that's a cost they're willing to pay, literally pay, as in financially pay. They don't really care about the actual lives. It's just the money that they're worried about.
Absolutely. I remember you talking about the parallel between this and what happened with oxycontin and it, yeah, I mean, having watched those documentaries about oxycontin and having seen the way that it was rolled out so quickly and pushed, and it really does, there's a lot of parallels that you can see there. I don't know if there's Ozempic stuffed animals, but like there were with oxycontin, but
I don't know if there are, but it's already the marketing to doctors thing. That's well known. That's already been exposed, especially here in the UK, where Novo Nordisk got a massive slap on the wrist. And this is what happens to drug companies: they get a slap on the wrist. They don't care. So what? Slap you on the wrist, and they've got a 2-year ban from the ABPI because they have been like offering training and course materials, etc., to doctors, pharmacists, etc., and nurses, without disclosing that those materials were written by Novo Nordisk. Now, in the UK, you can't do that. If you're gonna produce the materials, you can, but you must say this was written and produced by Novo Nordisk, so that people, like clinicians, are able to say, all right, I'm going to take what you say with a pinch of salt because this is produced by a drug company. But because they didn't do that, they did it sneakily and illegally, they got a slap on the wrist. So we were already watching them in real time behaving exactly the same way as Purdue behaved 20 odd years ago. It's exactly the same. And I think they know that they've got like even the evidence, and I'm sure, we can go, I don't want to sort of take us off on a tangent, but the evidence is showing that these drugs they're not there for the long term. This is a short-term solution. It's not a long-term thing. And they know this. I'm sure they know this because they're reading the same data that I'm reading.
Yeah. So let's get into that. So what does the research say about its effectiveness? Like how much weight do people lose? Yeah, let's start with that. And then we'll kind of go from there.
So the first study is the biggest one. They did lots of studies on semaglutide, and they're called the STEP trials. And that stands for semaglutide something, something, something. The S is semaglutide, I forget, and the rest. And so the first STEP trial was big. 5,000 people were recruited, and they were basically assigned to 2 arms. You're either going to take the drug or you're going to take the placebo. And alongside that, you had a 500 calorie deficit. So whatever your calculated calorie requirement is, just your resting sort of energy expenditure, you take away 500 calories from that and you consume that every day for a year. You have to exercise 150 minutes a week, and you saw a weight loss counselor basically once a month. So there was a kind of diet element. You already kind of calorie deficit exercise, seeing a weight loss counselor plus taking this medication as well. And you're either taking the placebo or you were taking the weight loss medication. And the people who were just taking the placebo and on the diet and nothing else lost about 2.5%, 3% of their weight over the course of the year. And the people who were taking the semaglutide lost, I think it's between, we'll call it 15% for kind of, for simplicity's sake, about 15% of their body weight, which is a dramatic weight loss, which a lot of people say, wow, isn't that amazing? It's so successful. I think it's horrendous to lose that much weight in such a short period of time. Your body must be shitting itself because your body is not happy with even a much smaller amount of weight loss in a short period of time. To lose that much is going to cause a great deal of stress and panic within your body. And it is going to respond to that. Like, your body does not take that. Like, your body does not understand, oh, I'm fat and I'm trying to lose weight. Your body thinks you're starving and you're dying. Your body thinks you're sick and it's going to try and fix it as quickly as possible. So this thing that they're praising, 15%, isn't that amazing? In such a short period of time, we're talking a year, nothing. It's nothing. That is actually, to me, quite concerning. If, slow and steady surely is better than dramatic and not long-standing. So yes, you can ask the next question because there's so much more, but I don't want to go ahead of you.
Yeah. Wow. That is, it just makes me think, because I work with a lot of people who are, kind of like over 40 and, you get to a place where you start to lose like muscle mass. And so you think about like the combination of those two things, co-occurring for somebody who is already going through, like the menopause transition, like that can't be good. Like that is probably even worse for them to be, thinking about like bone density, muscle mass, because obviously it's not just fat loss, it's those changes that are happening as well.
And that's such a good point. And actually, if you look at the Step 1 trial, they did take a subgroup of people and study them in more detail and actually look at their fat composition, their body composition, how much fat they lost. They lost significantly less fat than they did weight. The majority of that weight was water and muscle and lean mass. It takes 5 times the amount of energy deficit, roughly, to lose 1 kilogram of fat than it does to lose 1 kilogram of muscle mass. So the first thing you lose is lean mass. Sorry, I keep saying muscle mass. I mean lean mass. The first thing you're going to lose is lean mass, which is the last thing you want to lose because, as you said, especially as you're getting older, that's the thing you need to you want to keep. And don't forget, these people were exercising. So a lot of people will, but if they just exercise, no, they were already exercising. So that didn't stop them from losing. And there is literally not a single paper out there that can prove that if you just do this, that, and the other, you won't lose muscle mass. You will lose muscle mass when you go on a dramatic weight loss diet like this. It's insane, the numbers. 15% is huge. And people just, because they look so much smaller and everyone is just like, all we care about is thinness. We don't care about what that's doing to the body, but the body cares. The body... I was saying this to my group. I'm teaching a course called Unshrinkable at the moment. And I was talking about this today. I said, we forget that our body's only job is to keep us alive, right? It has one job, to keep us alive. And it does a really good job of it. It keeps us going through so much. And we are so quick to praise the shrinking of our body, whereas actual fact, when our bodies shrink, our bodies are panicking. It doesn't feel healthy to our body. Our body thinks something is wrong. So actually, just even the first part, which is like, oh yeah, the benefits are you lose a lot of weight. You do, but you lose a lot of weight in a very short period of time, which is not great. The second thing that happens, of course, is, as we all know, whenever you lose weight, you hit the peak. We call that the nadir. And then you start to restore your weight. And the 5th study, Step 5, showed that people who took this drug for 2 years, they hit the nadir around 68 weeks. And by week 102, so that's the end of the second year, they had gained back some of that weight. They were already regaining, even in the study. So this idea that, you just need to stay on these medications. Once you've lost the weight, you'll just stay, you'll maintain it. It's not true. Their study proved otherwise. Their study showed, weight started to creep up. Now, they stopped it at 2 years. We don't know what happens beyond 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. We haven't seen the data yet. But if you follow the trajectory of the curve, of the line, actually, by about the 5th year, you're going to probably have restored most of the weight if you keep following that line. Now, of course, we don't know. We have to wait and see. But this idea that, it'll just, It'll fall off and it will stay off forever. No. And as I said, Novo Nordisk knows this. They've seen the data just like I have. And so they can spin it however they like. The reality is we're going to see people regaining weight. And for the Ozempic folk who've been on Ozempic for diabetes, like started it 10 years ago, they'll say, yeah, I lost some weight, but I gained it back. It didn't last forever. We're going to see the same thing. I'm sure, I'm willing to, here I am on a podcast. I might be wrong, but I have a good feeling that we're going to see the same thing.
Yeah. Wow. And that's with people staying on the drug. Like that's not somebody coming off the drug. So what happens when somebody comes off the drug? Like, did they look at that?
Yes. So the step 4 trial is exactly that. So what they did with step 4 was they took everyone and they put them on semaglutide. Now, everybody in the first 20 weeks got Wegovy, everybody. And then half the group stayed on Wegovy and the other half of the group got switched onto a placebo. Of course, you don't know that you're being switched on a placebo. It's all blind. We call it a double blind trial. I just realized how offensive that is actually. But anyway, that's what we call it. So the ones who stayed on Wegovy obviously lost the weight. The ones that were switched onto the water medication, remember, they're still dieting, they're still exercising, they've got the kind of placebo effect because they think they're on the medication, they're doing the weight loss counseling, they're as committed to this as you possibly could be. The moment they switched onto water, they started regaining the weight, and they almost regained it all within such a short period of time. In fact, what they found was the weight, what they call weight regain. I like to call weight restoration because, like I said, your body's just trying to get you back to like, level. It just wants to bring you back to where you were. It doesn't want you to be dropping weight. So as you're restoring the weight, the speed at which you restored the weight is actually much, much faster than we've ever seen with any other weight loss drug. So we all know that when you stop any weight loss drug in the history of weight loss drugs, you start to regain the weight. But the speed at which you regain has never been seen before. So here we have a drug that causes an incredibly fast, rapid amount of weight loss, very short period of time. And then the moment you stop it, a rapid weight gain, a large amount of weight gain in a very short period of time. And that is also really bad for the body because what we know and studies have shown is that your body, the composition of your body changes. The composition of your fat, your muscles, and your gut will change. There's also all sorts of inflammatory pathways that get triggered by this. Insulin resistance goes up, your cortisol levels go up. It messes with your reproductive hormones. A lot of things happen when you lose a lot of weight and then you regain that weight. A recent study came out that said the metabolic consequences of weight regain far outweigh the negative consequences, I should say, the negative metabolic consequences of weight regain far outweigh any short-term benefits from weight loss. So here is a drug that is going to make you lose a large amount of weight, put your body through an awful lot of stress. And either you keep taking it and then it slowly creeps up, or you stop taking it and it creeps up quickly. But either way, it is going to cause huge amounts of long-term metabolic damage that you'll be paying for years from now. And the problem is we don't know what that is yet. How do we know? We haven't studied it. And the sneaky thing is, kind of like Purdue did actually, they blamed the individual. When it was becoming obvious that these drugs were addictive, the first thing they said was, it's not a drug.
Yeah, they're the addicts.
It's people.
Yeah.
It's people who are taking it. They're the addicts. What they're going to do with Wegovy, mark my words, is that if we begin to see negative consequences, they're going to say, well, it's not our drug. It's the fat people. Of course they've got this. Of course they've got that. Like, they're fat. That's what happens. And so once again, they'll blame the individual before eventually, I'm sure things will come out and then it'll be taken off the market. Won't stay on the market forever. They never do. Name a weight loss drug that's lasted more than 10 years.
Yeah. Wow. And does it even improve health markers?
No. It doesn't. And they collected the data for the step 1, the big study, the first one, they collected the data, but they never presented it. And I think that says everything. Like, why spend all that time and money collecting the data and not present it? They would only do that if it was statistically insignificant. So there is no evidence it improves health markers at all. It's possible that it makes them worse. We don't know. We've not seen the data. So
when we say health markers, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but just for people who don't who maybe are unfamiliar, what health markers do you know what health markers they measured? Or?
So blood pressure, HDL cholesterol, LDL cholesterol, lipids, like triglycerides, HbA1c, leptin. I think they did CRP. They did the usual. It's blood pressure, lipids, and A1C are the main ones, and markers of inflammation as well. They may even have measured insulin. I don't know. But my point is that they didn't study it. And also, we know that rapid weight loss puts stress on the body. And we know that actually that can, for example, drop your levels of antidiuretic hormone, which you produce in the brain, and as a result can have an impact on your blood pressure. So what if taking this medication actually makes it worse? We don't know. We don't have the data. So it potentially could. I'm not saying it does, but it potentially could. We just don't know because no one studied it. And in terms of the long-term effects, well, of course, we're not going to know about that for another 10, 15, possibly even 20 years. So, watch this space, take that risk. Imagine you're 25 years old. You live in the age of Ozempic. It's on Instagram. Your favorite celebrities are using it. They're even talking about it at the Oscars. Ozempic this, Ozempic that. You go into a gym because you want to start your healthy lifestyle kick, and then they offer you Ozempic, and then you take it for a couple of years, and then 10 years from now you find out, oh crap, that's done this to my pancreas, or that's done that. And then what? Like, there is no going back. And there'll be anger, and there'll be resentment, and there'll be bitterness. How could we let this happen? Well, you've let it happen over and over and over again, and you've done nothing to stop it from happening. So of course you let it happen. At the end of the day, profits will always be more important than people, especially in the healthcare industry. So we can but warn people and hope that they heed the warning.
Yeah. Wow. It really is, scary to think of. And I think, like you mentioned before, it's the self-blame, right? Like, it's going to be people who think that they failed it and who are mad at themselves for, opting into it because maybe they, just didn't have all of the information like you are presenting here. The other question I have that we haven't talked about is the side effects. Like, because obviously I think we've heard quite a bit about how there's some horrific side effects. What are some of those?
So the main ones are like gastrointestinal. So the sickness, the nausea, and the vomiting are so common. Abdominal pain, diarrhea, constipation, anything that kind of has to do with the gut. A lot of people complain of headache, dizziness. Some people just feel really kind of just generally unwell with it, But there are some more serious, less common. Those side effects are so common. At 2.4 milligrams, it's really hard not to have those side effects. As I said, a lot of my patients can't make it to 1 milligram with their diabetes because of the side effects. So to get to 2.4 milligrams, that's quite hard. And I should point out, of course, that the results are for 2.4. It's people who couldn't manage to get there, like they weren't included in the results. So that's obviously if you can do it. But the common ones are common. The less common ones are more serious. So pancreatitis, which is inflammation of the pancreas, that's potentially life-threatening. So that is a risk. They excluded anyone from the study who was at risk of pancreatitis or had pancreatitis in the past. They excluded them from the study. So we don't actually know the data about how many people will get pancreatitis. The FDA has a black triangle, I think it is, about thyroid medullary cancer. There's a type of cancer of the thyroid that this has been shown to increase the risk of. Again, it's rare. I don't want everyone who start taking Ozempic going, I'm going to get cancer of the thyroid now. But it is possible. And then, of course, as we said, the ones we don't know. Gastroparesis is the one that really worries me because this medication almost intentionally induces mild gastroparesis. So I said it slows down the movement of food from the stomach into the intestine. And that can give you a lot of symptoms, a lot of discomfort, and it can last much longer than you're on the drug for. So it can cause long-term problems with this: heartburn, abdominal pain, vomiting, nausea, all of that stuff. That really worries me. And again, I just feel like we're led to believe that we must suffer to be thin as well. It's not just that we should be thin, but we should suffer at all costs to be thin. So people genuinely, if someone said to me, hey, I'm going to give you this medication that will, maybe help you to lose some weight for a short period of time and then you'll regain it again. Oh, and the side effects include, and they gave me this long list of side effects. I'd be like, dude, no. Why? Is it going to benefit my health? No, we don't have any evidence of that. All right, then. So why am I going to do it? But because we're so invested in getting thin, we just think, a bit of nausea, a bit of abdominal pain, a bit of vomiting. I mean, do you want to live the rest of your life like that? Not me. So, people need to take that much more seriously than they do.
It's wild to see. I was on Threads this morning and there was, I'll read like comments when there's conversations about it. And it's wild to see people be like, yeah, I have really low, I've been on it for 4 months and like, I feel terrible. Like I have brain fog. I have no energy, but the weight loss is amazing and totally worth it. And it's like, this is our culture. Like it's horrifying to see that it really is just like thin at all costs. And I mean, I was like that too. I would have been like, yeah, I'd rather be not function. I'd rather be thin and not functioning than functioning and like, have more, like be in a larger size. Like it's just wild.
And I think that's really important. I wanted to say that actually, but, and especially if you are, higher weight, you are treated so much better when you lose weight. And actually, there are some people, and rightly so, people who are being denied access to treatment, people who, whose lives are so awful right now, they feel like they don't have a choice. And I just want to make it very clear that I support these people fully. And if they want to take this drug, I 100% support that. I'm not anti people doing anything, to be honest. Like everybody has the right to decide what to do with their own body. And I don't like the idea of making people feel ashamed or guilty for making a very sensible choice. For me, it's always been about everybody having all the information. If you have all the information and you make your own informed choice, I 100% support whatever that choice is. And there should be no shame, no guilt. There's nothing wrong with pursuing weight loss. And there are so many reasons why people pursue weight loss. And I understand, how appealing it is, if nothing else, how appealing, even if I'm not just talking about because people will be nicer to me, but for some people, it's like because I could get the job I need, or I could get the IVF that I need, or I could get, I get it. I do get it. So really important to hear that. The issue here is not the people taking it. Again, let's not blame individuals. The issue here isn't even the people prescribing it, although I'd like to have a talk with them, but they've probably been duped just like everybody else. The issue here is the drug manufacturer. They are the villain in this story, and they are ruthless, and they worry me. They genuinely, this particular drug company worries me. All drug companies are bad, but this one, is really bad. And they are very good at what they're doing. They're very clever. They have created the perfect storm over the last 10 years with all their PR to turn this into a frenzy, and which has become a frenzy, hasn't it? This Ozempic frenzy.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So to prepare for this conversation, I watched just some of the clips from, for example, the Oprah special. I didn't watch the whole thing. And one of the things that I noticed was that they featured a child, right? And they're talking about, is this drug safe for children? What are your thoughts on that?
So the American Academy of Pediatrics already made moves. When they brought out their guidelines, which I think was about 18 months ago, they made moves. They made it very clear that the plan was that they were in cahoots with Novo Nordisk. It's very clear. They even hung around and waited for Novo to finish one of their trials before they made the guidelines. It's crazy stuff. But they are already in cahoots. They want to push this drug to children. And Novo, as I said, they need to make as much money as quickly as possible. So they are going to push it to children, obviously all adults, fat adults, but they will be pushing it to thinner fat adults. So at the moment, it's here in the UK, you have, it's really, you have to have a BMI of 35 or over to access it. And, I hate BMI, but still, that's what, but, they want to push it down to 30. In an ideal world, let's push it down to 27. Actually, in an ideal world, let's not have a BMI limit. Let's have anybody be able to take this drug. So they want to push it to as many human beings as possible. They will push it to psychiatric patients. They will say, psychiatric patients are on these medications that make them gain weight. They should be taking Wegovy as standard. They will push it to people who have had cancer, so that we can prevent you from having your recurrence of your cancer. Even though there's no evidence to show that it will work, it doesn't matter. They'll push it to everyone that they can. And we're watching it in real time. You just have to look at who Novo Nordisk is spending money on to figure out what their next play is. I'm convinced mental health. I mean, we saw them do it with children. I think that they're going to try and tackle mental health next. But yes, It's
I
terrible.
feel like binge eating disorder, right? Like something like that, where they would say, oh, well, this can help you stop binging because it reduces the hunger.
Can you imagine? I mean, this drug should not be, I mean, it should be contraindicated to treat people with an eating disorder with this medication. Just like it should be contraindicated, and I think it probably is, to do bariatric surgery on a person who has an eating disorder. It should be contraindicated in eating disorders. And don't forget, there are a lot of people with undiagnosed eating disorders.
Yeah, they don't go screened, right? Because only 6% are actually underweight. So there's so many people that are probably getting this who already have an eating disorder or a really disordered relationship with food this would probably tip them over the edge to have a full-blown eating disorder.
Right. That's just so worrying. Like it's, and I mean, you could argue that by prescribing a drug that makes people lose their appetite and not want to eat and feel sick when they do eat, like one could argue that we are prescribing, at the very least, disordered eating or unhealthful eating behavior. But I would argue we're essentially prescribing eating disorders in our own way. We're basically saying, here, take this drug, take it for a couple of years. We have no idea what that's going to do to you in the long term, but fingers crossed, and it'll just reduce your appetite. But if there was a thin person who was deliberately not eating and was losing weight as rapidly as this, or even not a thin person, if somebody lost weight this rapidly, if someone came to me and said, I've lost 15% of my body weight in a year, I would be thinking either eating disorder or you have something seriously wrong with you. This is a pathological problem. It's not normal to lose that amount of weight. So, I just wondered again how we're so clueless that we would actually prescribe this to people, for example, with eating disorders without any care in the world as to their long-term mental and emotional well-being.
Anti-fatness is really, I mean, it's just, that's it, right?
Yeah. Spectacular. Yeah. Spectacular.
So I've had, clients have had a lot of questions that I've been working with, right? Rightfully so. And what's your advice to someone who has a doctor that's trying to push this on them? How do you suggest they handle that situation if they don't want to take the drug?
If you don't want to take the drug, you make it very clear, I refuse my consent to discuss this, put it in my notes, never discuss it with me again. No, I've read about it. I know the side effects. I've read about the benefits, the side effects, the risks. It's not an option for me. It's not one I'm willing to do. I refuse my consent to discuss it, put it in my notes, do not discuss it with me again, and just be really firm. And I love using the term refuse my consent, because if you refuse consent, you're telling a doctor, do it again, and you're breaking the law. So that usually shuts them up. Okay.
And so what if the doctor's pushing on them and they're like, this sounds kind of intriguing to me. Like, what's your advice to them then in that situation?
Yeah. So you have to remember what you as a human being are entitled to from your doctor. Your doctor must do what's in your best interest. They must make sure that they do no harm. They must practice medicine fairly and without discrimination. And they must respect your autonomy. Autonomy means you get to decide what happens to your body. You can only make a decision about what happens to your body if you know all the facts. We call this informed consent. The informed part is really important. When your doctor is informing you in order for you to consent to a treatment, they must explain the benefits. They must explain the risks. They must explain the long-term implications. And if they don't know what the long-term implications are, they must say, we don't know what the long-term implications are. We don't know if this is going to have any long-term issues for you. And then they must give you all the other treatment options. One of the treatment options is always going to be do nothing. And I remember learning this in medical school. If you've got a patient whose appendix is about to rupture, and you have to consent them for surgery, you still have to give them the options. The options are, I'm going to take you to surgery, remove your appendix so it doesn't rupture, or we could do nothing and your appendix will rupture and you'll become septic and you'll probably die. You still have to tell them that. And I remember at medical school being like, really? Do we really need to tell them that? And I remember my ethics and law professor going, absolutely, that's the law. So your doctor must give you all the treatment options. So if they start talking about Wegovy and you think, all right, I'd like to have a chat about this, make sure that you're asking them, okay, what are the benefits? What are the risks? And risks include short-term risks like side effects and long-term risks. What are the risks? I need to know the risks. And then what are the long-term implications? And the answer should be, well, we don't know. And then, and this is the key part, okay, but what are my other options? one of those options should be you don't attempt weight loss, right? Because just like with the person who doesn't have the appendix removed, one of the options is nothing. You do nothing. So they should be saying that. And if they're not saying that, then red flag. If they are like, you have to lose weight, there is no option, then that's not consent. And all of us know what consent looks like. Like we've explained consent on many occasions. If somebody's coming up to you and saying, I want to put my hands on you and you don't have a choice, we all know what that is. That's assault. So the same thing applies to doctors. It's medical assault. Always make sure to ask benefits, risks, and even if they've done all of that stuff, what are all of my options? All of them. And if they don't give you the option of not losing weight, then that's a red flag. And you can just be like, but I don't want to lose weight. Or now, and this the other thing is consent must be free from coercion. So if a doctor says to you, well, if you don't lose weight, then you're going to die in the next 5 years, that's coercion. If a doctor says to you, if you don't lose weight, I'm not going to give you the medication you need for your condition, that's coercion. That's blackmail. If a doctor says, oh, I understand that you want IVF, but you're too fat, so you can't have it unless you take Wegovy, that's coercion. And so that's, again, illegal. Know your rights is what I would say to people.
Yeah. And you're so good at helping people decipher those things and try to advocate. Along those lines, like, why do you think, like, are there more doctors who are like, yeah, no, I'm not prescribing this? Or because from what I see, just, kind of in the news and social media, is that there's doctors are like, it's a miracle. Like, this is there's like the lowest risk. And I'm just curious, like, you're probably more enmeshed in the medical community. Like, what are you seeing?
Well, they won't tell me if they're prescribed because I'm probably not the best person to ask. I think we've all been wooed. We've been wooed for years. Like, Novo Nordisk has been doing its due diligence and has been around for a few years now. They pay for our lunches. They pay for our dinners. They take us out to fancy hotels. They have these amazing conferences. They do all of this free training. Like doctors. We're quite stingy. It's interesting how we earn quite a bit of money and yet we're so stingy. But doctors will often go, oh, free training. Okay, cool. I'll take it. And it's sponsored by Novo Nordisk. So they have been flirting with us and courting us and dating us essentially for years. So yeah, like when they kind of finally went, here's the drug, we're like, cool. And again, watch, if you read the books or watch the programs all about Purdue and OxyContin. OxyContin is a middle of the road, crappy little drug. There are way better drugs out there for pain relief, for cancer patients, for non-cancer patients, for back pain, you name it. OxyContin, oxycodone, like middle of the road at best opioid. It was the individual drug reps courting the doctors in these little towns who just were like, okay, cool, like you've sold me. And yeah, we are sold. We all think it's great. It's on. They talked about Ozempic at the Oscars. I mean, it's fashionable, if nothing else. And sometimes you forget that doctors are real people, and they're also very much swayed by the media, social media, etc. So it's coming at us from all angles. I would not be surprised if all of my colleagues were happy to prescribe it. Of course, in the UK, you can't. So I don't know what's happening in the US. In the UK, we can't. No, GPs can't prescribe it. So it's very much kind of hypothetical at the moment. Yeah,
that's super interesting. Wait, so then who prescribes it in the UK then?
So it has to be specialist, basically the bariatric team, what they call the weight management team.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So it should, and it probably will change. But as I said, we don't have access to this drug. It doesn't exist in the UK. We can't even get Ozempic, let alone Wegovy. And you won't be able to get Ozempic for weight loss here in the UK, not on the NHS anyway. So you'd have to get Wegovy. And since Wegovy it's not there, it's all hypothetical at the moment. But from what the current guidelines say, it has to be prescribed by a specialist team. And you have to have basically gone through this step by step. And you have to have gone through the Weight Watchers step first before you're allowed to enter the Wegovy step. Those are the rules in the UK. But this is NHS. This is health, free healthcare stuff. It's different, I guess, to how it is in other countries.
Yeah. Wow, interesting. So the last thing I wanted to ask you is, because I work with a lot of other professionals in providers in this space, and one of the questions that they've had is how do you suggest they navigate these conversations with clients who are interested in GLP-1s? Because I'm experiencing it too, and I'm curious, because we're not doctors. I mean, I'm not a doctor, and a lot of these providers aren't doctors. They're dietitians or therapists or other coaches. How can we best navigate these conversations to help people?
It's interesting, isn't it? Like, as someone who's like, I graduated medical school in 2003. And so people just assume I know what I'm talking about because I'm a doctor. I don't.
I don't know if you want to finish the podcast with that
We are
one.
not more. No, I mean, like, I know what I know because I've gone and done the research. I didn't automatically know. Like, before I went and read all about the STEP trials, I knew nothing about this drug apart from what I'd heard in the media and what the press release said. So, you know, it seems foolish to me that somebody like yourself, who may not have the MD, but has actually done their due diligence, done the research, has looked into it. Like, you know more than most doctors. I hate to say it because they haven't read the studies. Do you think doctors, especially general practitioners, have read the time to read all the studies that come out in every journal? Like, of course not. We read the guidelines, we read the press release, and we don't read the whole press release. We read the bit at the top, like, you know, just the first 2 lines, because that's all we've got time for. So don't assume that the doctor knows more than everyone else. And as a dietitian or as a coach or whatever it is that you do in the space, actually, you probably know a lot more. And I think all of us just have a responsibility to put the information out there. And I think we do that in the kindest, most compassionate, non-judgmental way. We're factual about it. And we say, look, this is what we know about these medications. And now you make the choice. And I know what doctors are supposed to do. And I also know that doctors don't do that the vast majority of the time when it comes to consent, when it comes to doing no harm, when it comes to practicing fairly and without discrimination. I would argue that doctors are terrible at that. And most of the other people that you mentioned are really good at advocating for their clients because their clients are not getting what they should be getting from their medical professionals, and not just doctors, but also nurses and nurse practitioners nowadays, and midwives and physical therapists. Like, you'll see more and more that healthcare professionals aren't necessarily doing what's in their patient's best interest, are actually causing harm, are not respecting their autonomy, not allowing them to consent fully, and who are being unfair and discriminating. So you are actually best placed, I would argue, to support your clients. So my biggest thing would be like, don't worry that you're not a doctor. So what? You probably know way more than most doctors about this issue. So just tell them what you know. And if you've got access to good literature, give them the literature. Reagan Chastain has like this so much. She's done so much on this. So like, she's got it's all on Substack. Like, you can even read it for free. Just go read it and then just take Reagan's information. You're welcome to do my masterclass. You're welcome. Any information I have, you're welcome to use it with your own clients. Be like, here you go. Here's the information. Now read it and make your own choice. And I will support you 100%. And if your client says, do you know what, I'm going to go for Wegovy, I'm going to do it, then all you can do is be there to support them and be there for the fallout, because the fallout will probably come. And a lot of my clients don't do the thing that I'm hoping that they'll do, but I'm not here to tell them what to do. So if they make choices that I think, well, probably not the best choice, or I probably wouldn't have made that choice, I'm still 100% there for them. And then if they turn around and go, oh, that was a bad choice, I'm like, oh, fair enough. I understand why you made it. Let's move on. So yeah, I think we're the best at that. Let's not worry about doctors too much.
Well, I appreciate that a lot. And I refer people to your masterclasses all the time. First of all, they're probably too affordable, but they're really affordable. And you have such an amazing way of delivering information, as people have heard you here today. And so where can people find more of you and find those masterclasses that you're talking about? So
come to fatdoctor.co.uk. And you can find the masterclasses, and I'm doing one every month, so you might find one that suits you. I offer a couple of courses. One's called Unshrinkable, which is basically about how the body is unshrinkable. And one is called Take Your Power Back, which is all about taking your power back in the doctor's office. I also see my own clients. And if you're thinking to yourself, do you know what, I'm really struggling with something, and I wonder if Asha could help, I've been denied this particular treatment and I don't know what to do, or my doctors refuse to believe me, or I have this condition and nobody seems to know what's wrong with me, and I need a diagnostician. I need somebody who can help me, who's going to listen to me, who's going to believe me, who's going to validate me. Yeah, I can do that, for all clients around the world, doesn't matter where you are. And you can book a free consultation with me just to see whether or not we're a good fit. Again, do that through my website. And yeah, I'm always keen to work with people who are struggling to get the right treatment from their doctors, because I can be the doctor that goes, right, I see what's happening here. I hear you. And here's the things that I think that you could do to overcome the situation. And I help people challenge decisions, clinical decisions all the time. I help people write complaint letters, all sorts of things. So yeah, it's all on my website. And I'm going to plug something else really quickly because I'm really excited about this. I have another website called noway.org. Way is spelled WEIGH. This is a free website. All the resources on this are free. And I've just literally, I am in the process today and have been for the last 2 days of kind of giving it a revamp. And all I really want you to do is go on the website and then message me and say, oh my gosh, I love the new look, because I'm one of these people that hyper-focuses sometimes, and I've been hyper-focusing on Canva for the last few days. I'm going to need someone to kind of pat my back and go, oh, wow, that's so beautiful. And then I could be like, thanks so much. But yeah, noway.org, lots of resources on there. And it's all about, you have to give me a couple more days. Do it next week. I don't know when this comes out, but just give me a few days and then we're good. And the resources on there are all about why we shouldn't be weighing patients and we shouldn't be prescribing weight loss. And if you're somebody that wants to say no to being weighed, noway.org. That's what it's all about. So lots of information there. And for health professionals, if there happen to be any healthcare professionals out there and they're like, what's all this about? All the information's on there, all the resources and everything.
Fantastic. I love it. And it'll be, this podcast will go live in May. So it'll be live by then because we're recording this in mid-April.
Oh, amazing. It'll be done.
Fantastic. Yeah. Well, you are a gift. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you giving so much away and helping us. And people are going to love this episode.
Thank you so much for having me on and letting me spread the message. It's like spreading the gospel for me. So this is such a pleasure. So thank you so much. I thought we were very grown up and respectable the whole time.
I know. I should have heard it or something.
It's never too late.
I hope you learned as much as I did today. I feel like this is one of those episodes that you could probably listen to over and over because you would take away a new nugget of information each time. I hope you share it with people in your life too, who might also have questions about weight loss medications. Again, as Asher said, there's no judgment towards people who use these medications or who decide to take these medications because we live in such an anti-fat world. That said, I think it's really important that we have the full scope of information in terms of what the research really says. And hopefully it answered all of the questions that you had. You can find the links mentioned at summerinnanen.com/297. Thank you so much for being here today. Rock on. I'm Summer Innanen, and I want to thank you for listening today. You can follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Summer Innanen. And if you haven't yet, go to Apple Podcasts, search Eat the Rules, and subscribe, rate, and review this show. I would be so grateful. Until next time, rock on.